Hi guys, Fossmith here. Today I wanted to talk briefly about Chris Chan's comic book art. Now, it's my assertion that Chris Chan has the potential of becoming an okay artist if he tweaked a couple things about his art here and there. But first things first, the views I'm about to express in this video are very subjective, and they're just a collection of thoughts that I had milling around in the back of my head as I fell down the infinite rabbit hole that is Chris Chan lore. So who is Christian Weston Chandler? Well, if you're watching this video and you cringed at the clickbait title, you probably already know this, but he is an internet personality who, due to his non-existent brain-to-mouth filter and lack of TPO, has become the most documented person in history. But he got his start by making a webcomic called Sonichu. Now, there's entire Wikipedia dedicated to explaining how terrible Sonichu is, and the criticism is fair. There isn't that much going for it. It's a lot of self-insertion, fantasy, and copying other people's work. But, and this is probably where a lot of you are going to call me crazy, but there's actually a little bit of charm to it that keeps me enthralled. Now, I haven't really gone over the comic pages that meticulously myself. I've been listening to Bass Shaman essentially narrate the whole thing for me. Well, the thing is, the story keeps me interested, which is pretty incredible, actually. Any hole's a goal, I guess. But the other thing is, Chris Chan's drawing style actually reminded me of somebody, and I couldn't quite place my finger on who for the longest time. But it was endearing for some reason. And then it dawned on me who he reminded me of, and that was a shock and an epiphany. So before we start, let's get this out of the way. Please do not contact anybody that I talk about in this video. Do not reach out to them over social media. Do not try to interact with them. Chris Chan is on Twitter and on YouTube. And number one, he'll probably just ignore you. Number two, if he does interact with you, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Trust me on that one. And the Japanese author I'm going to speak about is not contactable anyway. He runs a blog on his personal website that he updates every now and then, but he doesn't have any social media accounts. Okay, well, back to the original conceit of the video. The reason why I think Chris Chan has the potential of being an okay artist if he applies himself correctly is because his art style, his paneling, actually reminded me of another author that I absolutely admire and respect. That author's name is Yuichi Hasegawa. Now, if you're into Gundam, or if you read manga, you might know who this is, or at least have heard of him. He's a Japanese manga artist who created maps. He's the artist behind Mobile Suit Crossbone Gundam, and he's been an artist for about 30 years now. I have been a Yoshiyuki Tomino fan, the creator of Gundam, a fan for a long time, ever since the mid-80s. And I was first exposed to Mr. Hasegawa when I opened up the monthly serial Shonen Ace in probably 1995. I saw his Gundam comic, and my first impression was I was actually not impressed. His art style is very simple. There's something very light and feathery to the way he draws. And it's probably an acquired taste for most people. Now, as I was reading this, and as the story progressed, I realized what he was doing. The reason why his art style is the way it is because he's taking his inspiration from a lot of the shonen, the young boy serials from the 1970s and the 1980s, like Matsumoto Leiji, or I would say even somebody like Shotaro Ishimori. Well, what does that mean? It means that in his art, Hasegawa Sensei prioritizes action and movement over photorealistic anatomy. Case in point, there is a panel in the first volume of Crossbone Gundam where the main mobile suit, Crossbone Gundam, kicks an enemy in the face. Now, perspective-wise, it's very loose, deformed. the kick, and you could tell from this panel, you see here that the head and the feet are probably not the proper size for the angle at which the body of the mobile suit is positioned. That being said, it works. It works really, really well. This kick looks like a kick. The way the enemy mobile suit, Batara, is reeling backwards from the weight of being kicked by the Crossbone Gundam's feet is just, it conveys a sense of motion that you really don't find in a lot of American comics. This type of foreshortening and deforming the body parts to convey a sense of motion is something that you really only find in a lot of shonen action comics. Now, bear in mind that what I'm about to say has a very big caveat to it. That's, Chris Chan is notorious for tracing and outright stealing other people's art. So anything that I'm about to say praising Chris Chan might simply be a function of him copying somebody that knows what they're doing. But that being said, I think it's okay to trace other people's artwork when you're practicing and when you're first starting out. Once you're at the point where you're actually selling your work, you can't be copying other people. That's just, as a professional courtesy, it's not very good. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does this have anything to do with Chris Chan? Now, hear me out. I actually think Chris Chan intuitively knows what needs to be done in order to make an engrossing comic. And the reason why I think this is because he seems to have an inkling of an understanding of how to drag the reader onto the next page. At least from the perspective of sequential art. Now, do I think this makes Chris Chan good? No, but I believe that it signifies that he has the basic building blocks that are necessary in order to become competent. Does this make Chris Chan some sort of savant or naturally gifted person? Probably not. But at least to me, it's a sign that on some subconscious level, he does have the ability to analyze and comprehend what he's read. This ability to hook the reader and get them to turn the page is a lot better than a lot of professional comic book artists that I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years.